Yeah, it's visible, Ashok.
Okay, now before going into the assignment, let's discuss first, and then I will explain what exactly the issue is and why we use the Docker compose file and everything. And after that, we will go into the containerization at scale. So before starting, before starting, we will just recap the Docker basic concepts, means what exactly we have set it up an application, how we exactly it worked out, how exactly it was working out, what was the issue will be with the Docker compose, and why we need Docker orchestration. So guys, why we use Docker? What was the first thing why we wanted started using Docker? Do you remember the GTA Vice application, the GTA Vice City application, where for one .exe file, when you want to run that installation on your machine, you have to first download the installer and you have to run the installer. And after that, when you go trying to do installation, you are getting error message. You troubleshoot the message issue and again you rerun the installer and again another issue arises. So what exactly the issue was? Why we exactly started using the Docker? Because we want to use an application, we want to use a software application where we should not be having any issues with it. Because if you are having a .exe file or some file you are running continuously on your laptop, on your machine, you are continuously getting errors. To overcome these errors, to overcome these issues, where to easily run a software application on your virtual machine without having any issues, without having any OS problems on your machine. That was the reason. That was the Docker where exactly we were having this kind of problem. See, as we have discussed in the Docker in the first slide when we have talked about Docker, what was the slide we are actually talking it? You are trying to do some installations, you are trying, because if a Grand Theft Auto like GTA, where we have taken this one as example, where we have mentioned this thing, how exactly this works out, means how exactly we going to install this application. We go to the, if it is for Windows, we are going to use a Windows one. If it is for the Mac, we are going to use Mac. We are trying to install it, we will be facing the issues, we will troubleshoot the issue, again we will run it, and again another issue arises. To overcome these issues, where we will be using a file, we will be using a component Docker system where you can install this, you can install this GTA on it, so that it will not dependent on your virtual machine. What exactly the Docker is? What is the definition of Docker?
Docker is an isolated.
Isolated. Okay, come on, go on.
Sorry, container is an isolated, Ashok. Sorry.
Docker is an open platform. Open platform. It is a standardized, lightweight unit where once you build whatever application, software application you build on this Docker container, it runs on any environment, including the application code, the system libraries and their dependents. It's open and secure. It can run anywhere, any operating system, Windows, Linux, data center, cloud, anything. It's an open platform. It's a standardized unit where if you want to run the GTA, if you directly run it on the Docker, if you just run it the Docker will take care of everything. It will be start working on it. It will be taking care of these things. You don't have to worry what is the installation is going on, why the errors are coming. The Docker will take care of it. It will make sure, okay, this has to run. How exactly this has to run? It will take care of the Docker container is the one where it can run on any OS. What is the main difference between the virtual machine and the container?
Virtual machine is very slow comparatively, and the security wise, it is not so secure.
Who told you this virtual machine is not secured? And who told you that virtual machine is slow?
I mean, we cannot get over the concept of matrix of hell through virtual machine, but through Docker container, it is possible.
Okay, Puneet, let me go like this then. So I will ask you. So you have to tell me. Okay. Now tell me. Okay. Puneet. Now this is a data center. Means this is a data center. Means this is a data center. Okay. Where you have two machines. One is one single EC2. Okay. Which doesn't have Docker. There is another EC2 machine which is having Docker. Inside of it, there is a Docker container where you are running a Docker container. Now, to connect to the internet, which one will be more fast? Which one will be more fast to connect to the internet? Whether the EC2 machine or the Docker one which is inside EC2 machine. Which one will connect fast to the internet?
EC2 machine.
Why?
Because we are connecting. When it comes to the Docker file, we need to install, we need to run EC2 and then install Docker. So it will be tougher.
Okay. What about you, Puneet?
Uh, it should be EC2 machine only, I guess, Ashok. Not sure, but as Ishwan said, like we need to first create instance and run on instance. We need to create EC2, so it gets connected faster. But in Docker case, we need to run the Docker and then get connected to the internet.
I see. The thing is that I will be explaining two use cases for virtual machine. The virtual machine means you can't run multiple applications on a single server. First point. And why we prefer Docker on virtual machine? Because the main difference. What is the main difference between virtual machine and the container? What is the main difference? What is the main difference between the virtual machine and the container?
Maximize the number of applications running on a server.
So container has only one OS. Virtual machine has own OS on it.
You are saying reverse.
Reverse
The
Ashok.
weak kernel is the main thing. For the virtual machine, it will be having the kernel because it will be having its kernel. But for the container, it will be using its own kernel, where the kernel is the more main thing, where it will make sure whatever application you are running, if you are running on the Windows, on the Linux, whatever, it uses its own kernel to configure with the kernel, and it makes smooth for your process. But there are two cases where we prefer virtual machine or container. The two cases one is virtual machine is more secured than container. Second, virtual machine connects to the network very fast compared to the Docker containers. I'm repeating it again. Two cases, the virtual machine is preferable. One, it is more secured. More secured. Why it is more secured? In virtual machine, you can fully isolate the process. But in the Docker, you can isolate only the process level isolations. You can have only process PID. This will be done on only Docker side. But if you want to do anything on the virtual machine side, fully isolation. You can do anything with your virtual machine, whatever you have can do. Network side, the virtual machine can directly connect to the network virtual machine, but on the contrary side, Docker, if it has the container has to connect, it has to go through the virtual machine first, for then it will go to the network, because it has to connect. It has to connect with the virtual machine network. That is the reason, right? When the EC2 port, when we are mapping 8080, why we open the port in the EC2? Because from there the internet traffic goes from the EC2 to the container inside. So this was the two reasons where we prefer virtual machine over containers. And if you want to run multiple applications on a single server, we prefer container. We prefer container. Any questions, guys? This is the main difference. This is the cases where they may ask you what exactly why VM is preferred container. You should be able to tell the two reasons why VM is preferred, and why is the reason container is preferred over VM. If you want to run maximum applications, then container is preferred. How Docker container has been created.
Uh, Docker container.
Yes, how we exactly run the application through Docker. How exactly?
We will first create the Docker file. Then we will
Okay.
build the Docker file. Then we'll create the image, Docker images. Then we'll run Docker run -it and image ID.
Okay, then
Then after that, we will map the port.
first we will create a Docker file. The Docker file will have all the commands to run our application. In that, with that Docker file, we will create an image, and we will take that image and we will run, which creates a Docker container. That container is the one where our application is contained by, and it will start running. And our the command includes from, run, cmd, from which base image, what is exactly the base we want to use on the application which you want to run. If it is for Java, from Java. If it is an you want to application, you want to uh, Python, from Python. Run, cmd, add, copy, entry point, volume, user, and many more. I'm gonna ask you two questions. What is the main difference between entry point and cmd? Punit, tell me the
Yes.
answer.
When it comes to entry point supersedes all the other commands. It will, after giving the entry point command, list all will be taken as parameters. If in case of CMD, after we run the file, it will be taken as first PID when it comes to CMD, but it cannot oversee the entry point.
Okay, if both are present in the same entry point in a single file,
Okay.
which one will oversee and what will be the, I'm gonna give CMD echo, this is Ashok, and again I am gonna give entry point, and I'm mentioning something inside that, and in the Docker run command, when I'm running Docker run itd image ID, and after that I am mentioning Punit. So what will be the result?
It will display whatever it is mentioned in the entry point, then the rest will be taken as its parameter.
Yes, entry point will be the supersede. This command prompt, whatever you have provided in the command prompt, will become a parameter to the entry point. Will become to the endpoint. This will be a basic interview question if someone is going to ask you about the Docker. And I'm gonna tell you, we have copy and add. What are the main differences between add and copy? This may be also an entry question if they ask you about Docker. Add and copy. Add and copy are the same functionalities. Add is a new version of copy. Copy is the old version of Docker. Add is the new version. What exactly? But add has two more features than copy. Two more features. What? It has ability to download the images from the remote network, means from the internet. Add has the feature where it downloads the image from the internet or from the remote network. Copy is that just you copy the files, whatever has been present on your system, on your source from here. But add will also be able to do download the images from the internet, and also the files, also the tar and any file which you want to do, you can also do it. You can also do that thing. This is a basic interview questions. If anyone asks about your Docker, what exactly the Docker is, what exactly you know about add or copy, the difference between the command point and entry point, what exactly the difference is. And you also know that, right? The network, as I mentioned, the Docker network, where you have bridge, host, null. If you goes to that network, the network is always dependent on the VM. If the VM is available, means what exactly you are going to give. The bridge network, how exactly it goes inside host, how exactly works. It takes the VMs, means the virtual, means the EC2 instance network, whatever you are going to provide, then it will not be able to run another one. Null, it is a nothing. It's isolated network where it doesn't work anything. Any questions, guys? Anything? Up to now, you have whatever we have discussed, whatever we have done, whatever we
Ashok,
have learned, and the Docker volume. You know about the volumes, right? Docker volume.
Ashok,
Yes. Yes,
can
Ashok.
we write CMD as well as entry point in a single case, Ashok?
Yes, you can write it, but as I said, the entry point will oversee. Means whatever, irrespective of the flow, entry point will supersede the CMD. We have written on that day, right? When I have shared you some files, I asked you to write the both in the single file and see what
Single.
exactly happens.
Yes, Ashok.
So the entry point will supersede everything, and it will be the one where it overtakes the CMD. Whatever the parameters you are given in the CMD, it will become a parameter to the entry point.
Yes, Ashok. And it will not override the entry point too.
Sorry?
And it will never override the entry point.
No, entry point will not be overridden at anywhere. Entry point is the one where it will be the considering as the highest order. So entry point will come if the CMD and entry point is there. Automatically the parameters which are given in the CMD will become a parameter to the entry point. Whatever, means if you are running in the Docker run CMD, Docker run ITD, the image ID bash, in the bash, if you are mentioning, if it is not a bash, if you mention bash and the entry point is there in the Docker file, automatically that bash will be considered as a parameter to the entry point. I think I have given you the examples when we are discussing, and this is just a recap. I'm just mentioning that you didn't miss the flow for the past 4 days. So I just going through
Yes.
it, and again I'm asking you the questions.
No, Ashok, like I've seen an example where they have given the sleep and the timer.
Okay.
They're mentioned in the different sections. So I asked, like, is there any particular thing to mention?
No, see, irrespective of the flow, entry point overtakes CMD. Irrespective of the flow. If the CMD is on the first line, entry point is on the last line. But end of the day, the entry point overrides the CMD value, whatever it has been there. It will become a parameter to the entry point.
Then Ashok.
Okay, then answer this question. If you have tried, how do you check the list of space taken by Docker containers in the system, like images, containers, volume?
Sorry, Ashok, come again, please.
How can you check the list of the space taken by the Docker containers? If you are created multiple containers, hundreds of containers, if you want to see my system is showing how much space the Docker container has taken in my virtual machine, in my system, whatever I am installed the Docker. How to check it?
Check the spaces.
Have you guys ever tried it? When you have created the containers, you want to see how much space has been taken by the Docker container in your system. Have you tried it? No, right?
No, sure.
So anyways, I'm going to share the PPT. So try this and answer me the question tomorrow.
Sure.
So what is the Docker command for displaying the layers of a Docker image?
Layers of Docker image.
Yes.
Docker compose -f Docker compose dot images dot yml.
What was my question and what is your saying?
Docker image
There-
layers.
Oh, sorry. You said layers of Docker images. Sorry.
no, no, Ashwant. Docker image layers is not the answer. Try this.
Okay.
I want you to try. I don't want to answer the answers. I want you to try. When you create the container and anything, try to check all the ones, whatever you are having. Try this and tell me the answer tomorrow.
Sure.
And I have tried this, Ashok. Docker history and the ID name.
Okay, what you got?
It will show all the process, whatever we have run through.
It will be showing all the layers also of the Docker
Layers,
image.
exactly, Ashok.
Then it would be this is the answer. For this is the answer. Docker history and the image ID which you are having. If you mention it, it will display all the layers of the Docker image. Everything. Docker history, image layer. Now, what we have discussed, why Docker Compose came to the picture when we were having, just a minute, guys. When we were talking of what exactly we were thinking about it. If we remember, we were talking about a voting application.
Yes.
What was the 5 components in the voting application we had? Do you guys remember it?
Uh,
Ashok, voting, result, worker, result, database,
Okay.
and result last one.
One was voting, other one was Redis, other one was worker, front end, Redis server, and the backend server, and the database. Again, the
database
server,
Database and
result.
result. Now here we want to run all these 5 Docker containers in a single server, all 5 servers in a single server. What we were having a problem, we have to go each Docker file and we have to run. And when one it is running, we have to check the other one is also running or not. So for this case, what we have done, we have composed a Docker compose file. What the Docker compose file done, what exactly we have done, where if we want to run all the 5 things, means all the 5 things in a single go, and to make sure whether all are running or not, and we have to make sure whether all are running or not, how exactly it works out, how exactly it is working out, means if you are using the vote application, when you are voting it, how if it is not, the worker is not working on, means if your 2 containers are running, suddenly the voter is not running, but you want to save the data, you want to save whatever the votes has been given by the people. We are using the Redis for the caching,
Caching.
and caching will be gone to the worker, where the worker will provide the result to the database, and the database will go directly to the RS. Now if something happens to the vote, means something has been hacked, means my voting server has been hacked. If it has been hacked, so then automatically my database has also been hacked, right? Because it's a single flow. The data is coming like this only, right? It is going from the voting server to Redis to the worker, and welcome to database. So here, problem is that if one has been hacked, one has been spoiled, one has been deleted, or maybe something happens, something. It is not secured, means something has been gone through it, then automatically my database also gets affected. The data, if the database gets affected, there is a lot of personal data, anything which will be lost. So what should we do? What can be done here? What can be done, guys? What can be done? I have means someone hacked my voting means it is a continuous flow. It is in the same network. Automatically, the database is also being impacted. The database also impacted means the voting server through the hacking. They have hacked my database also. What is a good way to work it out?
Secure, Ashok. Secure the entire process.
If you secure also, it has been the same thing, right? If one thing has been hacked, the other things will also go through it. The same thing. If it is secured also, if you are they are already been go through the voting service, so automatically they can go to the Redis. They can go to the worker and they can database. Guys, for this kind of
Adding any
situation,
firewalls, Ashok?
whatever you are doing, it is the same thing, right? See, if you are in the
Okay.
same network, if you are in the same network, one thing has been hacked, so the other things is not a big problem, because automatically you are already been through their security protocol, you are already broken their security protocol. So one has been broken, so there is no point of again the four will not be hacked. It is a simple thing. So to avoid this kind of issues, where we should have two different networks, means what exactly? See, the voting only depends on what one? Redis, right? It will be sending means whatever the voting means, whatever the votes has been given, it is only has been cached by Redis, and Redis is sending the worker. Is the voting dependent on the database directly?
No,
Is the
Ashok.
voting directly dependent on the database? No, right? So
Not directly.
here, the database is dependent on the main. It is coming from the worker. The data it is taking from the where? It is from coming from the database. And database is, and here it is coming. It is coming for, it is directly giving to the result from the other one. It is not taking the same one. So what we do, we will keep two different networks where the vote and Redis and the worker in a single network, the database, the worker, and the result server in a different data, in a different network, where it will be having one network. If something happens to the vote, my database is secured. If something happens here, my worker or maybe my Redis is safe. Means my voting, if something happens, it will not go through this network, because it is not possible for to crack this network, because it's a different network. So for this kind of situations, and there is a possibility that a container can be existing in both the networks. It is possible. It is possible that a container is available in both the networks. And as we mentioned, voting depends on the Redis server, but database doesn't depend. So if the Redis depends on what? On the worker. Suppose if the Redis is not up, if Redis is not up, and voting is up, whatever the votes you have given, will it go to the worker?
No.
Here, the result means the result is up, but the database is down. So, are you able to see the result?
No. Not be able to.
So now you are able to understand why exactly the Docker Compose has been used, where we want to have multiple containers in a single compose file, in a single YAML file, where we can start and stop automatically. We can start and stop automatically whatever we are doing. Now let's go to our assignment. What was the assignment?
Assignment is to create uh,
The movie.
front end, back end, and database.
A movie application. One stack based movie application.
So what was here? Here was front end.
And then client,
What is this? This is a back end.
back end, server,
What was this? This is database.
database.
Yes.
So now tell me, if you gone through the file, let me see, file is here, right? Now, if you, these are the service, is the front end dependent on the database directly? Is the
No,
front
sure.
end dependent on the database directly? What is
No, sure.
the backend sends
Back,
the data to database?
Database.
Means the process goes from the front end to
back.
back end to database. And again, if you want the result, again it will be like this: database to back end and back end to front
Front
end.
end.
So now if you see, the front end is dependent on the back end. Means the front end data has to flow on the back end. If the back end is not up, means if the front end has to be, means the same data which you want to get, which you want to have, anything has to be on the back end. And if the back end has to work, whatever the data has been sent for the front end, means whatever the UI customization you are doing, it goes to the back end. And where, if you are having, if you are want to work out on the back end, where it is exactly dependent, it is dependent on the database, where how the data is getting twins, what exactly the data, what is the data it is been processing, what exactly. If the database is not up, then there is no point of keeping the backend up. This was the reason. If you go through the file, now I'm going to explain why we have kept all these things. Now, if you see the client, what exactly this is the front end where we have built through the client. And what exactly means the networks, if you see, if something happens, this will be happen to the this one. And because the front end is automatically dependent on the back end, and the back end is totally dependent on the database, because this is the one. And the back end is also have it is intercrossing with the front end. This was the reason if you see for the client, the network was the front tier. This was been created because this is dependent on this only network. But if you see for the backend, we are two networks where it is also been connected to the front end network and to the back end, to the database network. So this was the reason the networks, this is an optional one, but very important one. Very important when people say these networks are optional, but this is a very important thing. See, if you one container is available in both the networks, what we have done, we are discussing the front end and back end, and we have created that network. This was the reason where we mentioned networks, front end tier and back end tier we have mentioned. This was the reason how we composed the file, how we have written the file. We have created our own network. What, which one is, which is a front tier, which consists only the front end container and the back end container. And we have created a back end tier network where it is having only the database and the back end. That was the reason in the server we have mentioned the two networks here, and in the client we have mentioned only the front entire. If you see, and the database which we mentioned, it is mongo, so that was the reason it is in the backend entire. This was the reason that networks has been mentioned. Now you will be able to understand why we have declared networks in the Docker Compose file. Now, there is another option called depends on. Depends on. As I mentioned, if the DB, if the backend has to process the data, backend has to get the data, it is dependent on the database. It is dependent on this database. If this database is means the backend is taking a time, the container is getting started in 20 seconds. For the DP container, it is coming up in 15 seconds. So in the meanwhile, the user sent the data from the front end to back end, but the back end is up and it got the data. It has to process the data, but the DB is not yet up. So automatically the back end will come out down in the between when the DB is coming to healthy state. Between means the DB is coming to the state where it is running. It is at that time already the backend is done, because it is not getting any data from here, any data, because it is not able to process the data. It is not able to, because the data which has been sent by the front end side, the data from where it has to go to the DB,
It has been not able to process. In the meanwhile, the backend will go down. That was the reason we have mentioned depends on. Depends on means if the backend has to hub, means the backend container has to go up. It has to first check. It has to first create the DB container, and it has to check whether the DB is in a healthy condition. Means the DB container is in a running condition or not. If it is running, then make the backend service up, backend container up, so that it can process the data. That was the reason we have mentioned depends on Mongo. Means we have used a MongoDB database. So depends on Mongo. Condition. What is the condition? Service healthy means whether check whether the DB is running or not, whether it is healthy or not, healthy and healthy, healthy and unhealthy. Healthy means it is running, unhealthy means the container is not running. That was the reason we have mentioned depends on the condition. And now if you see on the Mongo, if you see on the Mongo, we have done the health check. We have done the health check. Why? So that here, based on this condition, we have to make sure that service healthy has to come out. So we have done a health check test where in the container, go to the command prompt and ping db admin command ping. If you get the response, if you get the response within 10 seconds and the timeout is 10 seconds, retry 3 times and the start period is 20 seconds. If you get the response, then make sure, then hit that okay, the container is up, so that the condition make sure that service healthy, and it will bring the server up. It will bring the server container up. This was the reason you will not be able to, you are not able to get the third container up in your compose file. This was the reason, because the DB, if you have printed Docker PS, it would have been shown the Docker DB container would have been in a unhealthy state. That was the reason it is in an unhealthy state. The server was not coming up. If I am pretty much sure, you will be having this issue only.
Yes, Ashok.
This was the reason this compose file has been mentioned. Depends on how exactly it works out, how exactly it takes it out. Now, why we have means this ports. There is no need to mention this ports here. Means 3000 and 8000 port. But why I have been telling you means is there. If you mention these ports, the good thing is that if you don't mention, it's a very good thing. If you mention, is a bad thing. Why, I will tell you. Now, if you see here, the backend and database and front end are all on a single server, and these are internal services. If you open a port, this is in a single EC2 machine. If you open a port, so the from the back end, that data getting processed to the DB, how it goes to the port 3000 outside of the EC2 instance, and comes back to the database, which makes the time to open, because these are the internal servers, these are the internal services. The backend and database are the internal service in a single EC2 machine. They should be connected internally. They should, if you should not open the port, you should not open the port of the backend, so that it should not connect going out of the network, out of the EC2 machine, and connect to the internet and come back to the database. This takes the time data process late. So we should not open a port on the back end. For the front end, that's fine. From the back end to connect to the database, we should not have to open the port. But here, for the practice purpose, we have given. Any questions, guys? This is the reason, this is the example where how we will write a Docker compose file, how exactly it works out. And I think where is the do you guys have the link for movies app? Wait a minute, I think I have the assignment somewhere. Are you guys able to understand whatever we have seen up to now?
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok.
So this was the reason. This was the reason where we have discussed, where we have tried, where we have worked out how exactly this works out. The movies app, how exactly it works out, how exactly they have mentioned, how exactly they have kept the Docker file, how exactly they have worked it out. This was the reason where you when you work it out, when you try, this is the reason the DB may be unhealthy. This is the reason you are not able to get the backend service up. So you have to figure out why it is unhealthy. Why it is unhealthy. Try. If you don't, then I will try to solve. But the compose file already it has been given everything here. So you just have to make sure, you just have to understand why this DB server, DB container is unhealthy. Why it is unhealthy when you are hitting it, when you are working on it, why it is unhealthy. This is totally about a Docker compose, how exactly we are working it out. Any questions, guys? I think this is the same thing. The restart and everything. I will explain it to you later. So these are the environment variables as we see, and the web environment depends on, as I mentioned just now. If some server, if something is dependent on, if something, as I mentioned, the backend is always dependent on the database because it has to get the data processed from the backend. So we'll always keep the backend is dependent on the front on the DB. So this is the reason the depends on is on the Mongo. Now, if you go to the voting application, where is the voting application? If you go to the voting application, if you go to the voting application, here, if we on that day I told you to run the Docker compose, see how exactly the vote depends on where Redis and the result depends on DB and the worker depends on Redis because it takes the data from the Redis and the Redis is the one which we have taken and the DB it doesn't depend on anything. See, this is the reason we depends on has been used and see what are the networks they have created front end and back end. Now see the DB is in the back end and the Redis is on the back end and what is this and the worker is also on the back end and now if you see the result is on both the front end and then the back end and this one the vote is also on the front end and back end. I'm just giving you an example but they have been kept like this means their process is totally different and the vote will come only it will come only on when the Redis condition is healthy. So what they would have tested this health check whether the Redis is up or not, same for the worker also and for the result what they have done they have mentioned on the DP depends service healthy. So this was the reason in the DB also there will be health check here. This is the way how you gonna write a Docker compose file. Any questions, guys? Anything you have up to now? Any questions, guys? Anything? Are you guys able to
Yes,
understood
Ashok. Yes, Ashok. Yes.
have discussed whatever we have done, whatever we have got up to now? Are you guys able to understand?
Yes. Yes, Ashok.
I'm going to explain this restart policies a little later, not today. So now we will take an example of this voting app only. So we will talk it about now. So we have this voting app. What is the cons of using a Docker compose? What is the cons of using a Docker compose? Suppose if one of this is not available, what you are exactly doing every time we are using Docker compose minus up, Docker compose up, Docker compose of whenever one of this server means one of this service is not running, what exactly you are doing? Docker compose minus f docker, again you are in docker compose.ml file up. Every time you are running the application, every time you are running the same again and again. But that doesn't mean it is always creating a new container. Means whenever you are making it up, already if it is been one is down, what if one of the application goes down, automatically you are running again the same docker compose file, where already the other four are working it, already the other four are already up. But for one single instance, you are running it, all the docker compose file again. And what, suppose if there is a traffic flow, suppose I have, when I first started the application, when I first started the website, there was only 100 users. Now the traffic inflow is coming, means there were thousands, 10 thousands of users. Now I have to scale my application, I have to scale my service, I have to scale. How to increase my scale? How to increase my scale? How can I do that? I have to increase my scale. I have to increase my scale. How should I do it? Means how exactly? Because here to scale, you remember, for scaling we need multiple containers. Means for single service I need multiple containers. But as you know that in a single EC2 machine we run the Docker Compose, because these are all on a single machine itself. Now if I need multiple services to be run, it will not be possible, because I am already been in a single instance and I have to create a multiple. It's not possible for me. It's not possible for me. It is not possible for me. You need to scale your system. And if you need, you are been running 5 containers, but you need to run 50 containers, 100 containers on a machine, 100 containers. That's not possible, because you have to increase your voting and the result. You have to increase your services, how we are going to do that? Because in a single container, means with the container, with a less number of, means whatever highest number of containers you can do it. But how? Because it has to run on a single EC2 machine, right? Because here the container which we are running, it has to run on a single EC2 machine, but we need to upscale, to means we need to work it out more. We need multiple EC2 machines, which is not possible. If you choke up, if you want to run multiple containers on your EC2 machine, you can run it, but it will choke up the system. It will choke up the system, where it will be totally extricated, where it will not be having any space, nothing. Here I'm giving an example. If you have 4 CPU, you can go for up to 5 containers. 4 CPU configuration wise, 4 CPU you can go up to 5 containers. But if you want to run 50 containers, 100 containers, as your application is growing fast, you are getting more users, how you are going to upscale it, how you are going to use for the multi-node? Because the same compose file, if you are already been on the single EC2 machine, and the same thing you are running on EC2 machine, obviously it will be over collide, because that's not how it works out. And without in a production system, without bringing any downtime, how you are gonna change the application? Means suppose there is a replace, you want to replace some changes in the voting service, you want to replace something, how? Without having any production downtime, how you gonna replace it? You can't do it, right? You have to docker stop down, or maybe you have to provide docker stop and a container name. That is not possible. That's not a good thing, because you are already in the production. One downtime in the production means when something stops, then there will be a lot of impacts. Have you guys understood what I was trying to say up to now using the voting app? What exactly using the Docker Compose, when we are trying it out, we are facing some challenges. What are the challenges? The availability challenge, the scaling challenge, where you have to scale your system, the multi-node challenge, where you want to deploy more containers on other nodes, means other EC2 machines, which is not possible. Deployment, where you want to deploy new changes on your container
Container.
without the having any downtime. Without having any downtime, how is that possible? We will come into the picture called container orchestration now. What is a container orchestration? Container orchestration is just managing the life cycle of the containers. I'm repeating again. Container orchestration is all but nothing about managing the life cycle of the containers. What are the life cycle stages involved in the containers? Starting
Yeah.
phase, running phase, deletion phase. I'm repeating again, starting phase, running phase, and deletion phase. What is the starting phase? Now, based on the picture, if you see that where the baby is born and he got up, his name, his parents' name, is whatever his full name, everything. Running phase where the guy has been in his prime age, where he's doing the bulk lifting, he starts working, he prepares, he is having his own family. Deletion phase where he gets old and is not able to do anything more, and he gets up. The same way in the container, the scaling phase means the configuration phase where you have the container name, image name, whatever you have done, the port mapping, the volume, whatever exactly volume, the network configurations, the running phase where how much scaling you can make, how much load balance can it take, the availability, the health check, deletion phase where you clean up the resource, whatever it has been contained with the cut container. I'm repeating, if you understood these three things, going forward, whatever we discuss about the orchestration will be very easy for you. I'm saying again, if you understand these three things about the life cycle of a container, going forward, whatever we learn about the orchestration will be a dead easy for you. Starting phase, running phase, and deletion phase.
Yes, Ashok.
You can go through the picture. Just automate. Yeah, the types of containerization tools. The types of containerization tools are Docker Swarm, which we are going to discuss now. AWS Managed Service, ECS, Elastic Container Service, Kubernetes. This is the main now ruling the industry. Kubernetes, and there are other things, DigitalOcean Kubernetes Service, and the Redshift Open. But these three will be the ones which right now, owing to the market, every organization, every industry, whoever has been using the containerization services, they are maximum using these two things. They are using these two things mainly. But if you ask, we gonna discuss all these three so that you will not be having any issue with the orchestration. Now, what is a Docker Swarm? Now, let's take an example where you are working in organization. How many types of people will be there? There will be managers and there will be workers.
Team lead.
As the team lead also doesn't work, right? The managers and the workers, what exactly the managers do? The managers assign the tasks, means whatever the project they are having, they will assign the work to the workers. In a factory, if you work it out, there will be manager and there will be workers, where they will be assigning the tasks to the workers. And what is the work of the workers? They will have to complete the task and update to the manager. This is the man and worker force. Now the same way the Docker Swarm works on manager and slave architecture, where one will be the manager who assigns the tasks and does everything, and the slave has to do the work and complete the work and inform to the manager. It will be called manager and worker architecture, or manager or slave architecture. Now, in IT, we don't usually call slave. So that's the reason we mention manager and worker architecture. In a single company, there will be how many type of president, means how many presidents will be there. In an organization, how many presidents will be there?
One president.
Yes, the same way here when we start in the Docker's form, the Docker's form will be having only one manager where he will be asking in absence of the president, who will be taking care of the tasks, who will be taking care of the tasks, who will be taking care of his duties, who will be doing that.
Vice President.
Yes, the same way here in the when the manager is not available, the workers in some workers, someone will be able to become manager to take that work. Someone will become manager to take that work, and once the manager is back, the worker will become again the same worker. So here, based on this scenario where we have considering it, part of a Docker engine helps to create, deploy, and manage a cluster of Docker containers on a single virtual system. Where we will be talking, I will give an examples tomorrow how exactly the Docker's form means. We will create some application, we will work on it. The node is nothing but a machine, means a single EC2 machine. Whatever we are using, that is a single EC2 machine. The manager nodes, as I said, the one which assigns the work, which assigns means if you are having five machines, one will be acting as a manager, where that from that machine, all the tasks means all the tasks will be assigned. Like if you have this one, five machines, this will be the manager, who will be assigning the tasks, to all the four worker nodes. As I said, work nodes are nothing but machines. Now in the absence of manager node, someone from here will become a manager, like is a manager. In the absence of manager, someone will become manager, that one will be called as leader node. Suppose if you are having three managers, in that managers, someone will be the first person. Someone means here, if you are having multiple, someone will be the leader node in these three managers. Means in a single project, in an organization which you are holding a project, and in that project there are three managers, one will be the main one, the other two will be the one who, in case if he is not present, they will be able to take care of their work. So the same way here, the Docker Swarm architecture, where in the absence of manager, the other person become the leader node, and these are all the worker nodes, where their work is to take the work, complete the task, and inform the manager. This is Docker Swarm architecture. This is the same thing they have mentioned. A node is any machine having a Docker engine installed and participant Swarm cluster, and the manager node acts as manager and assigns units of work called as two worker nodes. It also has manager leader node. If more than one manager node, means as I mentioned, if you're having multiple managers in the same organization, then one in both of them, someone elects one leader to lead them, and the worker, these are the nodes which the manager schedules the tasks, and the Docker containers run on these things. This is actually the architecture, how the orchestration works out. Any questions, guys? I'm going to explain you totally Docker's form tomorrow, how exactly it works out, how exactly we can work it out. But do you have any questions on this? This is the main thing. This is the life cycle of the container, how exactly it works out. If you are able to understand these topics correctly, tomorrow we can go further. Tomorrow I am going to explain about the Docker's form, why we use Docker Compose and Docker's com, means what's the difference between Docker Compose and Docker's com, and what will be the reason the orchestration is going on more. the containerization is going to have more effect. Any questions, guys?
Ashok.
Are you able to understand everything up to now, whatever we have talked, and what exactly the Docker Swarm is? It's the same one where it is a containerization orchestration tool. The same thing only. It's just difference is it's a container orchestration tool where it
Okay.
helps to create, deploy, and manage the Docker containers on the virtual machine. Have you guys gone through the uh, one which I have requested on that day? Means I have requested you people to go to the Docker orchestration and do something. Have you guys went through that? Docker Compose and Docker Swarm. In the chat, I have asked you, right?
Yes, Ashok. Yes, we have.
Yes.
Okay.
Like it is a solution. Like container orchestration is the solution for set of tools and scripting. It will be helping in the production environment. Container orchestration.
Okay.
Basically for managing Docker containers at a large scale.
Okay. Tomorrow we will go further into the Docker Swarm and we will go further into the Docker Compose. Means this is the total topic about the containerization where exactly we want. I just want to give an overview before. Now we're gonna deploy an application the Docker Swarm and we'll try that. So basic features and everything whatever it has been and the differences between the Docker Compose and Swarm. I request you guys. I think I have mentioned you why the Docker Compose file is getting failed for you. Now
Yes.
you have to figure out
Yes.
why the DB is unhealthy. I think I already given you the result to you. So now it's up to you to figure out the. Okay, there was one more thing. Sorry, I missed that one. Where is it? Here, as I mentioned, I asked you to change this one MongoDB IP, right?
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok.
Now, when we are discussing, I said that we can change the ports, means we don't have to provide the ports. We don't have to provide the ports. We don't have to provide the ports where it has to be an internal service. It has to be internal where it that should not come out of the EC2 and again have to go back. So for that, you can use Mongo here. You can use Mongo directly here. You don't have to mention your EC2 IP. You can mention Mongo here so that it directly connects to your database to Mongo directly. You can mention Mongo here, so it directly takes the Mongo here. Have you guys understood it?
Yes. Yes. Yes, Ashok.
As I mentioned here, if you see everything, if you just maintain the container name, automatically the server will be taking the internal service. So that's the reason we are mentioning the container name. So that the same way I'm asking you to check to directly on the DB side use the Mongo here image, so that it automatically takes the Mongo, so that the internal connection works out. Now figure out why the EC2 Mongo or DB container is unhealthy.
Unhealthy.
Try to make it healthy and work it out. Have you guys understood it what I have said?
Yes, Ashok.
Will you be able to do that?
We'll try, Ashok. Definitely.
Please try it, because see, the Docker Compose file is already been with you. You have to figure out means why the container is coming in a unhealthy state. Go through the container and see what is the error. Google it or maybe YouTube it or somewhere, do it and try to make it healthy. If it is healthy, automatically the server will come up, the server container will come up. Okay, guys. Any questions up to now you have? Anything?
Tomorrow I'm gonna explain about this Docker Swarm and Docker Compose, Ashok, by building that.
Docker Compose I've already explained you.
No, no.
Docker Swarm and orchestration.
Docker, see, orchestration means whatever we are discussing right now, the Docker Swarm, the ECS, these are all the things where we want to using a single system server means handling more components, hundreds of containers, hundreds of containers in a single virtual kind of thing, like the manager and worker. From see, you just give an example. You will be having from the manager, like the manager gives the tasks to you and you have to complete the same way. The Docker Swarm, what exactly we do is that we will create the main, we will create the Docker installation on one machine, and on the other machines we will be providing, we will be giving, means the other machines also the Docker installation will be done, but we will be giving the tasks. The main thing means whatever the network flow, whatever the traffic will be coming to the Docker, we will be sending the tasks to the other machines. They will be doing the tasks and it will be coming back to us and we will be giving to the front end. So that's the way we will work out in the master worker architecture. So we will be doing the same thing here as the master slave architecture. The same thing will be done in the Docker Swarm, and the same thing goes for the ECS, and the same thing goes for the Kubernetes also. If you understand this logic correctly, how exactly the master worker master slave architecture, then it is a very dead easy topic for you about the ECS, elastic container service, and the Kubernetes. The Docker Swarm is just a basics where we will be looking at how exactly it works out, and then we will be discussing about the ECS and everything. Kubernetes will be the last topic where we will going through that, because if for understanding this you have to understand the monitoring and everything. It the Kubernetes will be the last topic when before at the time of completion of your total DevOps course. At that time we'll be discussing about the Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is a vast and it is not a single thing only about the containerization. It will be having a lot of things to be considered. Any questions, guys? Anything you have in mind? Anything if you want to ask, you can ask. Are you guys remember what exactly the Docker is? What is Linux fundamentals, basics of networking, whatever we have gone up to from the past 20 days? Do you guys remember everything?
Yes, Ashok.
Sure.
Yes, definitely. We'll repeat. I mean, I have repeatedly watched your videos. The recordings available.
Are you practicing it? See, watching is not the thing. The practice makes what you exactly you do, what exactly you are working it out, how much you are preparing.
Yeah.
Yes, Ashok. Mostly
Yes,
I'm
Ashok.
stacking up with the spaces and few like character case, Ashok, like caps.
Where?
No, no, I'm clearing all the errors, Ashok, now. Previously I was not able to like exactly figure out the error. Now I can figure out the error where it is and how it can be get the solution for that.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Please go through it again and again. Make sure, as I mentioned it again also, along with Linux, if you understood Python also, please go through it. But Linux scripting is the one thing they will definitely ask you in the interview. If they ask you to write a script, you should be ready to write any script in the specified time of span. I'm saying it again. They may ask you to write the script. They may ask you. You should be ready. See, other things will be not maximum theoretical, but the Linux is the only thing where they may ask you to write the script. So I'm asking you again and again, please make sure your basics are good so that you can go further. You can go a very long way if your basics are good.
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok.
Okay, guys. I think you try out, you figure out how to make the DB healthy and to make the server up. And if you do it, just ping me in the WhatsApp and provide me the result.
Sure, Ashok.
I think
Sure.
you have the result already with you. You just have to make sure how exactly. You just need to figure out how exactly this comes. This was the reason maybe you are just having only the unhealthy state, or maybe only the two containers are coming up.
Yes, yes, Ashok.
Yes, yes.
You just figure out that one and you will be able to do that. So you understood about the networks and that depends on, right?
Yes, Ashok.
Yes,
Why
Ashok.
we are using these things, how exactly a compose file. See, if you want to just try to start writing this files, means same, this is just a reference file, keep it as a reference, and you can start working on this file using simple, or maybe you can start writing the file having this one. Terraform means what exactly that one was, this voting app. You can keep this one also as a reference and you can start working out about the ports, how exactly this works out, how exactly these things are being kept.
Yes. Ashok, do we
Okay,
need to mention the version, Ashok, on top of services?
where?
On top of service version, is there
No,
any mandatory thing?
see, this is a open source file, right? This is in Docker Hub. So if someone is modifying this one, so then they will be changing the versions. If they are using, means if they are updating the file, so that's the reason they may changing it, compose spec and everything.
Not here, Ashok. In Docker compose YAML file, there we need to mention version, like on top of version 1, version 2, version 3. Like they have modified few changes in version.
It's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you. If you want, you can modify it. If you want, you don't want. It's up to you. If it is single file, if you are not making any changes in the future also, then keep it the same. But good thing is that if you want, you can change it. Like this, they have kept version 2, version 3. It's up to you. This is a simple, uh, what I say, coding practice. A good practice where in future, if you are working in an organization, someone is using a file, means already a written file is there and you are updating it, so then you can mention this comment as version 3 and means whatever you are going to update it and modified by your name. That's it. So that someone suddenly goes to the Docker compose and see that this file is there and someone has modified what are the changes from the last time to this time. That way it works out. Any questions, guys?
No, Ashok. We'll try. We'll go through the video once, Ashok. Then.
Yeah, you can. Okay, guys, see you tomorrow at Nagesh is not going to connect at 8:30, right?
Um, I'll check with Nagesh once, Ashok,
No, no.
because he
He
told
told me that 9 o'clock every day his office is there. So every day we will start the class at 9 o'clock. Okay, because for him only I have started the class at 8:30. So if he is not going to join, so then we will start the class at 9 o'clock every day in the morning. Okay.
okay, okay, sure.
You don't have any. You guys have to start. Want me to start at 8:30?
No, no, anything is fine. If you are okay with 9 o'clock, we'll be able to join the
No,
meeting
it's
at
up
9
to
o'clock.
you because are you guys want 8:30 or 9? It's up to you because it's not my time. This was for Nagesh only. I've changed the time to 8:30. At the time, you
Okay,
guys were okay. So I'm just asking you. So you guys wanted 8:30 or 9? It's up to you.
we'll join at 8:30 only, Ashok. Then
Yeah, it's up to you. I'm asking you only. What about you, Ashwam?
Yes, yes, Ashok. It's fine.
Okay. Okay, then we will start the class at 8:30 itself. Okay.
okay,
Okay, guys. I'm just gonna upload. Yes. I'm gonna. Please provide your mail IDs, the Gmail IDs, so that I will upload the. I'm gonna upload these recordings to a different drive now, so that you can directly go through that. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys.